So Aja Wilson was interviewed and probably said something that she shouldn't have said. And I mean that, said something she should not have said about the Aces roster last year.
What if I disclosed that the team is the Las Vegas Aces that ruled the WNBA and appeared to the demise of an unstoppable dynasty? Aside from the interior, and what if I disclosed you are the primary cause of their collapse was recently made public in a leaked. You heard about the interview with Aja Wilson. Indeed, it is among the league's most leading teams are disintegrating, and Wilson's a startling admission could provide the explanation.
Why?
So, this is a quote, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. This person literally quoting word for word what was said, and because of backlash, people are going mad about it. Like, from AJ, it wasn't a championship locker room. I mean, out the gate, going to training camp, I was like, we ain't got it. It wasn't that she had the capability of her teammates, Wilson said, and because of a test that her former South Carolina coach Don Steady taught her that a winning team should look and sound and feel a certain way. I always told myself every game, we got to get there, we're going to check each box, but we didn't. This time around, Aja said, or Wilson said she's spoken to core teammates Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray how to prepare them. So, obviously, she realized that she wasn't going to win a championship and made the whole season about unanimous MVP.
But this interview doesn't end there. Doesn't only highlight the issues in. Additionally, Vegas has significant ramifications for Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. So when the Aces break, the Fever is subtly constructing something. Wilson mentioned something that's risky. The entire WNBA conversation and what this means for the league's future. Let's dissect everything, okay? Examine this thoroughly, because it's not. This is just another WNBA drama moment that might change the league's definition. The powerhouse used to be the Las Vegas Aces. Previously, the gold standard is currently looking similar to a team that simply ran headfirst into the leaking Aja and a brick wall. According to Wilson's interview, the wreckage left behind the current MVP, Aja Wilson. The franchise's heart, face, and the team's soul just acknowledged that she recognized right away that this team wasn't constructed. Finally, pictures showing up for training camp after winning a title, anticipating running it back, only to glance around and, I believe that this year we won't have it. Self-awareness alone isn't enough. It's a huge warning sign, because if your leader, that's what your best player has said before the season even begins, you're losing before the first game even starts. Played. But what's even more bizarre about this was that it wasn't merely a small locker. It was a room issue. Wilson flat out, the founder, stated this wasn't a locker room for a title. A strong declaration that's the type of anything that you realize when you hear it. All of your thoughts regarding this team was untrue since, from the exterior, the Aces appeared to have it all. They had talent, experience, and were in control. Depth of coaching, yet behind closed doors, they were hardly able to stay together.
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year.
And now, we're witnessing the fallout since when one or two important players leave, that's purely commercial. But when you lose half, Kelsey Plum, your team is a collapse. Gone Alicia Clark, gone Tiffany Hayes. Sydney, Carlson, and even Kate are gone. Martin, a young player with promise, left. Exposed to the expansion without protection. The Aces are losing more than just pieces in the draft. They're being gutted.
Something that happened to one WNBA team this offseason, and I told somebody a while back, I said, I'm going to start doing some digging. All right, and the digging was, why is Aja Wilson losing all of her teammates with the Las Vegas Aces? What's going on? Everybody leaving town. And all of a sudden, an interesting article dropped with some very interesting comments where it looks like Asia Wilson's driving a bus and her teammates with the Las Vegas Aces are in front of the bus, and boop, 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 boop. She just ran them all over.
So let's discuss why. Because players aren't the only thing at stake. Departing for better deals, this is. Regarding a culture that, in Wilson's opinion, when she wasn't working, it all began with a single significant query. What happened to the chemical?
Somewhere, Kelsey Plum got a little cracked smile, probably, off the team. Glad to be, I would guess.
In her interview, Wilson brought it up. This group lacked a leader, which is intriguing since when you examine what do the champions always do? Claim that they were members of a brotherhood, or everyone was locked in a sisterhood, that they were carried by a trust throughout the season, but Wilson simply revealed that the Aces didn't have that. Discussed the fact that they weren't clicking, how she had to pull all the time, excellence from her teammates, how there was no accountability.
You see this quote, it wasn't a championship locker room. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
That's particularly since the Aces were sold as they possessed this unstoppable force. Becky Hammond was one of the swaggers they had. The game's top basketball minds. They had many famous people on their roster, but if Wilson claims that they weren't truly a team, where were they at the time? Things become tangible when you consider the reason a pattern begins to appear. This year wasn't only a poor one. This was due to several injuries or unfortunate breaks. A group that secretly struggled with way they performed. There were moments when they appeared to be in control, yet they'd look vanished all of a sudden. It was inconsistent, concealed by skill, and it all culminated in a head against the New York in the semifinals. That game, York Liberty, was meant to be a declaration to demonstrate that the Aces continued to run in spite of the hardship. The WNBA, but it was a complete failure. Wilson discussed it and claimed to have kept. We'll get there, she told herself. We will check every box, but they never played any games where they should have been in control, but they weren't. And the Aces important in that pivotal game. Players scored a pitiful 28 points between them. It's more than simply a horrible night. It's a team disintegrating in the most terrible way. It's time to dissect this because when a group breaks out like this, there are typically three main justifications for coaching: chemistry, leadership, and the present. On all three fronts, the Aces are failing. First, let's coach Becky Hammond. Is legendary, having been a finalist for. She is one of the NBA's head coaches, basketball's best minds, but in this case, there are some actual inquiries regarding her methods for handling this team. If Wilson claims to be the leader, wasn't present, indicating that someone wasn't assuming responsibility, and if players are departing, that indicates they didn't feel linked to the Hammond system. She has a strict coaching technique and requires a lot. But what occurs if players quit? Purchasing what occurs when a coach's voice begins to lose its impact. We may be witnessing the solution today. And chemistry comes next, which is where Wilson's remarks cause the actual harm. Clearly, this team never completely gelled, and it's evident in the manner. On several occasions, they performed there, appeared to be in charge, but there were also evenings when they appeared to be a bunch of people as opposed to a unit. That's the reason why players are departing, is because we're seeing this exodus when the chemical conditions are. Everything else crumbles as it breaks. And then, the most significant problem of all, leadership. Without a question, Wilson is a leader regarding it. But here's the thing. Leadership cannot be attributed to a single individual. There should be more than one voice in the locker, holding everyone accountable in the room. Require veterans to stand up and maintain the team committed, and if you lose that, when you lose everything, consider what Wilson claimed, that she expressed a desire to have a strong desire to challenge. both her teammates and herself. But if she's, what if I'm the only one doing that? What about the other members of the team? Was taking the initiative if no one? Consequently, that clarifies everything about this team. Wasn't based on trust and wasn't a family. It was founded solely on talent. Doesn't take home titles, therefore let's change of pace. Since the Aces are disintegrating, another team is on. The Indiana Fever and their ascent. This is when the exciting part begins. Since the Aces lose their essence while their roster is being stacked by the Fever, they're bringing in defenders of shooters, veterans, leaders, and above all, let's speak, they have Caitlin Clark. On the significance of this, since the manner, the reason the Aces are crumbling is precisely what the Fever is and how to prevent it. Not merely attempting to add talent there, attempting to create a system and culture that endures, and when contrasting the two, the Caitlin, the difference is night and day. Clark isn't entering a circumstance like as Wilson decided to join a team.